Let me ask you this question. How different would our world be if Viola Desmond decided that she was going to give up? The name may not sound familiar to you, but her face does on our $10 bill. You see, many of us have heard the story about Rosa Parks in the U.S. and her refusing to give up her seat on the bus. But way before Miss Rosa Parks did her thing, we had our own situation right here in Canada. You see, in 1946, Viola decided that she wanted to see a movie at a movie theater in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, which of course is right here in Canada. She bought a ticket and she went inside and she sat right in front of that screen. An employee came over and said, "Ma'am, you're not allowed to sit here." She said, "Why?" He said, "People who look like you, people who look like me, have to sit in the balcony." She didn't think that was fair. So she decided to buy the ticket where she was sitting. She went back to the ticket booth, but they wouldn't sell it to her. So she went right back in front and sat right in front of the screen where she was sitting. The employee came over again and said, "Ma'am, I told you that you're not allowed to sit here. I'm calling the police." You see, she didn't understand because the theater was empty. The police showed up and they said, "Ma'am, you are breaking the law. People who look like you are not allowed to sit here." Viola was a very small woman, but the police officers picked her up and they dragged her through the theater. They dragged her in the lobby. They dragged her onto the sidewalk and they threw her in the back of the police car. She was taken to jail where she spent one night. And it said that her entire night spent sitting in that police station, she never lied down once. The entire time she stood up straight like she does on our $10 bill. The very next morning, she found herself being charged with a criminal offense. You see, the ticket that she had for the balcony had a tax of 2 cents. But where she was sitting down low, that had a tax of 3 cents. So they charged her with trying to defraud the Canadian government of 1 cent. My friends, I gotta tell you, Viola was a very savvy businesswoman. Her husband was a very savvy businessman. They had the 1 cent. But you see, Viola recognized that it wasn't about the money. It was about the ridiculous laws that we had right here in our country. And so she decided that she was going to fight. And when she started to fight, people started to pay attention and she received death threats. Her husband said to her, "Dear, I love you and I see what you're trying to do, but I don't think we should be doing this. They are threatening your life. I can't lose you." She said, "Dear, I understand, but you have to see this, that this is not just about me. It's about those who will come after me who can live in an inclusive country because I decided to fight." And so she continued on with her fight and she pushed and she shoved and she fought, and unfortunately, she passed away before she could see her name cleared. But the great thing about the modern day government is that they went out and they found her family. They apologized. They cleared her name. In fact, she became the first Canadian to have a criminal record cleared after she died, the very first Canadian. And of course, as we all know now, she now stands on our $10 bill. My friends, I'm going to ask you this favor. And every time I tell the story about Viola, I ask the same thing because I would love to see a change. You know that gold coin that we have that's worth $1? What do we call that? What do we call that? A loonie. That second coin that's worth $2, what do we call that? A toonie. I'm going to ask you, the next time you have a $10 bill in your pocket, you don't call it a $10 bill. I'm going to ask you to call it a Viola. Why? Because it's a reminder of how resilient she was. Because Viola decided not to quit. Because Viola decided not to give in. Because she could see people beyond her that were going to benefit from her fights. Because she didn't give in. People like me, people like her, people like you can all sit together in that movie theater or any other movie theater we choose to sit in because Viola decided not to give up. I'm gonna ask you to stand up like Viola did. I'm gonna ask you to fight against injustice like Viola did. I'm gonna ask you to do what's right even when everybody else thinks it's wrong, like Viola did.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
I'm gonna ask you to choose your path and your greatness that's gonna affect people way beyond you, like Viola did.